You want me to?
We did it hundreds
Want
of
to call us
times.
back to order? You want me to?
No, we're ready. Okay, let's go back into this same workshop, and now we'll take part two, which is we're going to talk about road paving. Mr. Brock.
So part two of our workshop, it was brought to my attention near the end of the summer about some conversations that our county administrator had been having with some outside organizations. That also, when I was asking about just what would have to do to help pave more roads in Wakulla, what does our current debt look like? And they're like, and he said, well, I've had that conversation recently. But it being an election cycle, I decided it was probably best if we waited until after the election season to bring it back up, so that we would just be able to have the conversation. What I've brought for you all today, you've got an updated, this letter is from January 3rd from Mr. Ralph Ceylon, who's here, and I'll let him speak in just a second. We also have some representatives from Preble Rish, who do some of the engineering for the county. We have our public works people here if you have questions directed towards them, but I anticipate hearing more from Preble Rish and Mr. Ceylon. And just going to let them talk about and we also have the clerk's office here, who will have some opinions too, I am sure. I don't know, right now, the two things that we could talk about in the beginning is Mr. Ceylon can talk to us a little bit about our debt and how the debt's working, and if we want to talk about what it would take to refinance and what we could do now. And Preble Rish can talk about, in the document you were just handed, some of the roads that, if we were going with the matrix, what we could do, the first top 40 roads off of that. And these are roads, I think we already have all the right-of-way needed, versus like, I would like to see Old Woodville Highway finished. So that's a road that's not on here. That's that's patchwork. And when I was meeting with I think each of us met with the Capital Regional Transportation Planning Authority representative, about the Woodville corridor, it was a big focus item for him, was seeing that road getting finished. But we'd have to actually, that comes into a right-of-way issue, but they think that would really help Wakulla's traffic on the east side of the county. That being said, and the reason that I asked this question, and I'll lead this in my lead, and then I'll have Mr. Ceylon come up and speak if you'd like to start moving towards the podium. The logic I'm using right now is that interest rates are low, materials are low, and labor is low, and people need jobs. So it's a great time to try and do some of the infrastructure improvements that we might be able to do. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page and knew what I knew. And toss it to you.
Commissioner, members of the board, your staff folks. Now, your lawyer's already hiding from you over there. That's a bad sign, I guess, when you get the lawyer hiding from you. By the way, I talked to Mark Mustin today, and he said you had a lot more sense than he did, and
He's right, I do.
Suggested that probably wasn't a ringing endorsement, I didn't think. But anyway, we do a lot of work with her firm and have over years. Earlier today, we were doing a financing in Madison County, and they're the bond counsel on it. So we've worked with these people before. Commissioner Brock outlined for you what had happened up to now. The interim or assistant or whatever we call you now, Tim, I don't know. But anyway, if you want
Just Tim's good.
call at mealtime or when they're giving out checks again or whatever, I'm sure you'd appreciate it. And the clerk's office, and a gentleman that was in his office would seem to have more sense than the clerk too.
That'd be Greg.
We met with all these folks a couple of times, I guess. We started with trying to figure out a way to do some refinancing in order to be able to get revenue, to increase the amount of new money available for you to be able to take some of these roads that needed paving and do that. We approached it from a 30-year deal, I guess, with the probably with more influence from the clerk than anybody else. We reduced that to a 20-year deal, which is what you all have been accustomed to in this area. Most folks do 30-year deals, but for whatever reason, we followed their advice and did that. So we're trucking right along, and this administrator decides he'd rather be the zookeeper than keep this zoo. I'm not sure how that worked out exactly or why, but that's my understanding at least. And I got that from one of the monkeys in this present zoo, so I guess that's right. Anyway, we worked with him a good bit and with Tim and others to try to figure out what was the best for you to do, and came up with what is in this letter, and it's just been updated on the 3rd of January to include the present market conditions and the present rates and so forth. A major part of this was that you had 2 loans outstanding that we would need to refund those loans in order to get that revenue available to use for new money, which is where we're trying to get to, obviously. And there's some prepayment penalties that are a little out of the ordinary. For a couple of banks in the state seem to do this with regularity. Most of the other banks don't do that with municipalities. But anyway, there's a penalty. There's a prepayment penalty, which we have had our people to figure out. So we've taken all of this into consideration. And I could talk a long time, but I've been a county commissioner, and I know the worst thing in the world is to get you all bored and your eyes glassed over. So I'm going to try not to do that. I can tell you the bottom line of this is that we can do what we need to do with your present loans, pay the prepayment penalty, extend the debt no longer than 20 years. One of them pays out pretty quickly and the other one doesn't, but anyway, no longer than 20 years, and get you something over $6 million to pave new roads. Now, if you wanted to get more money than that, then we got to get some other revenue source. These are using your present revenues, not increasing your debt service. You're presently paying $750,000 roughly. We would not increase that any. So you're going to be doing the same thing you're doing, you're just going to extend it. And if you wanted to do something different than that, we look at other gas taxes that are available, but then that takes away from Tim's budget, and that was one of the things we were trying to help him do, is to not increase your budget anywhere. We were conscious of the fact that it was election time. Now, I think that's the best time to pave a road to every one of the damn voting precincts, is what I do with that. But you all saw that differently. And are you really mad tonight, Tim, or are you just sitting on, I just wondered if you was not getting any of this. Is it way over your head, or what's happening?
I'm listening intently.
Okay. Anyway, the bottom line is we can help you if we understand what it is you want to do. We thought we had done that. We've communicated with the clerk as well in his office, and we can do some other things if we know what your appetite is. If you're wanting to look at some additional use of present taxes without raising taxes, we can do that. But the bottom line is you're pretty tight on the rest of your revenues here. You got to keep grading these roads that you've been talking about. And my God, you got a quagmire there, it sounds like. I respect you for trying to do something about it. And it doesn't sound like to me you even touched the drainage, which when I was a commissioner, hell, that was worse than getting the damn right-of-way to pave the thing. It was getting right-of-way to do something with the drainage. And y'all got frog ponds up here, I'm pretty sure. So you got a lot to do if you're going to take that approach. I'm wandering around here, I know, Commissioner Brock. Bottom line is, we can get some guidance from you all. We can help you do whatever it is you want to do. Now, I'm not the smartest fellow in the world, but I've done this a long time, and I can go back any place I've been. And so we'd like to try to help you if we can.
I have a question.
Let me ask one quick question, and then I'll toss it over to you. And I just want to, we note that our 1 cent local options infrastructure surtax expires in 2017. And I know that we assume that the county will vote to approve that 1 cent local infrastructure tax again, but we don't know. What else would we need to secure?
Well, you got other gas taxes that typically people use their gas taxes to pay the road with instead of pay the light bill for the county administrator's office or whatever.
So we'd be able to use commit some of our current gas taxes?
But keeping in mind that you're presently using these things for funding the public works and other things. You got to keep that in mind.
Okay.
I don't want to put you in a position where you can't pay.
Right.
And I don't want to put you in a position where the people are mad with you.
Right. Want to put us in a position where people like us because the roads are paved and everything's glorious.
Well, they don't like that. And you ought to go ahead and get that done before you get into this next cycle, because some of you are going to want to run for re-election.
A couple of us are up.
Now, again, I don't know what to do. I've outlined what I think is appropriate. All that can be done. And Commissioner Moore, is it?
I see your numbers. Let me ask you a funny question. Did we ask you to come present this, to
Yes, sir.
do this?
Yes, sir.
You just didn't show up in town to sell a product?
No, sir. I was asked back in, I'm not sure, Tim.
I think it was back in April or May, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a good long time ago, in the spring, when the county manager, we've done a lot of work up here in this area, and we've done a lot of work with Preble Rich, who is your engineer, so I'm sure that some way or another he learned about us. He had actually done some work with Morgan Keegan in a different place, my company, in a different place. So
I'll ask our county clerk, is our back up to the wall where we need to make changes, borrow additional money? Is that something that we have to do, need to do?
I don't think it's a matter of need, Commissioner. I think it's a matter if you want to get some more money to pave roads. And
Like if you want to, if let's say for instance, you wanted to pave roads in Wakulla Gardens, we could, if you notice, a lot of the roads on here are roads in the gardens, or at least some of them. This would help enable us to do that without having to charge the neighborhood any additional money. But if not, the roads will probably never get paved.
We get certain money from the state off the 1% sales tax that goes to roads. Is that
60% of it.
60%? So and that's not tied up with these folks.
No.
Okay, so we do have money,
That money's already been borrowed and spent.
but we have more coming.
No, it's all tied up in a current loan that we used to do road improvements 10 years ago.
What we're trying to do is roll all this in and refinance it,
I know.
and then extend the year so that we have more borrowing power through this gentleman, or whoever we choose. And so...
And that'll get you $6 million more dollars to pay the roads that Preble Rich has got this list from. And
I've done a lot of refinance and rebar and reschedule and so forth. That's what I used to do.
well, you want to swap seats?
Well, how much do you get paid?
Better than I can.
I'm sure it gets
You get
more
paid
than-
more than I do, so we probably would. You're keeping our current payment of $750,000?
Yes.
That stays the same?
That was one of the criteria that, I guess Tim was the main one on that. We tried to satisfy everybody, and everybody had something was they were interested in. We would not be increasing your debt service. $750,000 is what you're paying now.
Commissioners, it would help. I mean, pretty much the lay of the land, and the clerk can talk to this as well, is, we have two sources of funds that we can pave roads with, our gas taxes and our 1-cent sales tax. Most of our gas taxes goes to, like Mr.
Tim, make sure you're talking
Goes
to
to
the mic.
operations.
This gentleman has our gas tax.
goes to funding
Sir, I don't have any of your debt.
he doesn't have any loans with the county.
So I'm not getting anything
People of your
from,
nature have our debt.
no, 2 loans that are out there is with Bank America. They're not our nature. That's a commercial bank.
All right. You're a bond company.
Well, yes, sir, an investment bank,
That's correct.
yeah.
So, like I was saying, most of our gas taxes is tied up with operations to run our road and bridge department.
Okay.
The 60% from 1-cent sales tax is currently being used to fund repayment of the 2 loans that we previously
Okay,
had.
so the 60% of the 1% is being used to refund the 2 loans that this gentleman may replace.
Right, and there's some additional money that we get from that 60% that's not dedicated to any loan payment we could utilize to fund any road we want. So there's a small capacity left in the 1-cent sales tax to do anything with, and that's...
But we didn't use any of that, Commissioner Moore, until somebody tells us to, because you're already using that, Tim can tell you where, but you're already using those funds now to do something else. And if you took those funds to pave road, to pay the debt on paving roads, then you got to do something else to pay the light bill or whatever.
This would just enable you to basically leverage your existing debt service, get more borrowing capacity, and put forward more roads.
Just like refinancing a house, I guess you extend the term.
Yeah.
I guess we'd need to figure out what we wanted to do with the money. I would never support this. paving these roads.
These are the roads on the matrix that are next.
Yes, now, I made the matrix, and I had a list of roads with right-of-way, roads without right-of-way, and if you go in the Excel spreadsheet I made and you click the cell from yes to no about right-of-way, they soar far and above any of these.
What's these?
It's my opinion that if we're going to use, especially if we're going to borrow money, they need to be used to pave roads that benefit the most people.
And that's why we've asked you to rework this paving matrix. Right, Mr. Merritt, you gonna work on this?
It'll take about 10 minutes reworking.
Well,
You still have to get the right-of-way.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
The right-of-way is,
But
takes
we
away...
don't spend all our money paving these .22 mile road, and then when we get the right-of-way, well, guys, we ain't got no money to pave Old Bethel, the rest of it, or Old Shell Point Road, or the major roads that are minor collectors.
okay.
We did this.
So, let's back up a minute. Let's finish with this gentleman on this topic first. I'd like the idea of what we're trying to do here. And I think we've got to go down a different road, no pun intended, to talk about and clarify what I agree with Randy that we need to do some different roads, and I would hope he'd spend more than 10 minutes working on that matrix. But the bottom line is the hiccup we got in this, guys, is the 1 cent sales tax runs out in 2017. If we pledge that towards this, I'm going to ask Tim to tell us how, or Brent to tell us how, what happens after 2017. Where do we get the money to finish paying the loan? Because it's going to run out in 2017. We can't take for granted the citizens are going to reapprove a 1 cent sales tax. I can't imagine they won't, because they see the value in it. I just know how hard it was to get it done before, because I was here and did it. But anyway, what would we use?
Yeah, well, there's a couple options. You could use your gas tax, but then you're going to run into how you fund your operations. I mean, there's 5 cents, the Elms nickel we don't impose. You can impose that to pay your debt service. I don't know if that would be sufficient. Or maybe by 2017 there'll be a different revenue source available. Or you could bond your general fund as well, but I think that would take a referendum of the citizens. So, I mean, there's a few options, and none of them are probably very pleasant. But
before he loans you money, he's going to want to know what the revenue source is now, not, you can't wait till 2017 to decide.
Well, that's generally correct, but you can take the budget, appropriate.
But our fifth commissioner is not here. If people don't speak into the microphone, I encourage you to do it again, Tim, because you and Heather have placed it between you, and neither of you actually talking to it. Heather, Lynn won't be able to hear it when she watches.
This is kind of a bossy fella. How long has he been on the commission? The option to that, Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, is that we can do a budget appropriation. You know, you can get the money out of the drink box. We don't care where you get it from, as long as there is enough total money to pay back the debt, and working with them on their budget and so forth.
So Ralph, they could pledge the 1 cent sales tax and just do a backup covenant to budget, rather than having to pledge gas taxes up front or something like that and use. So there's options. But
That's true.
if it comes to 2017 and the sales tax isn't extended, then that's when you have to figure out what your backup revenue source is going to be.
Yeah.
Then you got a problem. It almost seems like I want to go buy a house, but I only have a contract job that runs out in 2017. I don't know what I'm going to do after that, but I'm going to go ahead and borrow the money to build a house.
Okay, well, how much money can we borrow knowing that it only goes to 2017? We can't. I mean,
Well, we could take there's 60% being pledged now. We could take all of that and borrow more money. I mean, I got to have the numbers run, but I can tell you that off the top of my head. Now, what that does is screw up his budget.
no, I don't want to do that.
are you talking about changing the percentages that we currently allocate the 1 cent sales tax?
Yes.
No, that won't happen.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
You said that to me.
When is our maturity date on the 2 loans that we have now with the bank?
One's 2013.
November 1, 2013 is the first payment, November 1, December 18. December 18, 2018.
If you look in your papers, you'll see that, where the debt service runs out.
So you have one that goes beyond the term of your sales tax already.
And the new loan that would,
Okay,
the new loan we're talking about today is, the term is, it goes out to 225.
Yes, sir.
I'd be loath to refinance 20 years when our income, we don't know it's going to run out in 2017, but, who knows what the political atmosphere is at that time, might be anti-tax, and no, we don't want that 1 cent tax. Then we start with our pants down.
I don't want to refinance a loan that stops in 213 and pay a $200,000 penalty. Because that
Well,
loan,
you're not paying,
it's not paying to you, it's paying to Bank of
no,
America.
but you're not paying it on the one that stops in 2013. There are two loans.
Well-
We've got both of them
The
figured.
2018 one that's got the penalty.
Yeah.
Sir,
The 2018 one has the penalty.
there's two penalties there.
Yes, sir, there's two penalties.
And the-
The penalty is based upon the revenue loss to Bank of America.
I know, but
I'll talk to you more about that when I get up.
But one of them says 181,000, and another penalty is 200 and something thousand.
Well, the previous time when we did this is when it was 200 and something. Now it's 181 because we have refigured it after a 5 month period of time or whatever.
And that's total for both loans?
Yes, ma'am.
That's the total penalty,
The
is it?
181.
Yeah,
Yes,
for
sir.
both loans.
But again, and the clerk will tell you this, but that's a requirement of where you made the loan.
I understand that. I've been there.
And what they did, and SunTrust does the same thing, but as far as I know, they're the only two commercial banks who do this. They have figured out a way for you all to make them whole for the length of the time that you would have had the money. Now that, to me, there's going to be some front seats in hell for people who do that kind of stuff.
Well, I've been there and done that.
Yeah.
I've seen that. Yeah. The loan I don't want to pay off is the 213 because that's.
Well, we can figure it with any way
Okay.
you want, if you will tell us what you want to do. We've
Okay.
got people who are smarter than me and you can figure out how to structure it.
But the base, if we don't want to pledge payment beyond 2017, this is a moot point, in my opinion. Am I correct?
Well, we're the ones who, if the 1% ends when,
2017.
we're still the ones who put the 1% on there.
It's noted by the...
No, that's a
Referendum.
referendum.
That's referendum.
But there is
The
one...
voters could decide not to do the 1 cent sales tax. We're stuck with a $750,000 a year.
There
cut.
is...
But in the interim, you can stick yourself with a budget appropriate for $750,000 if you want to do it,
By raising ad valorem taxes, I guess.
No,
Something
you
like
don't
that,
have to
but-
raise the ad valorem tax. I told you that to start with. You cannot take the ad valorem tax and pay this. She'll tell you that. But you can take it out of the drink box money, you can take it out of fees, you can take it from anything other than ad valorem
I
tax.
understand your point, but if it was that easy to find extra $750,000, I think we'd have found it.
Well,
I can
I
find
understand
it.
what you're saying, though.
I can find it because I got different priorities than Tim has,
but there's a couple things that'll happen. And there's also, Heather, there are different sales taxes that we can impose without a referendum.
You can, if you're looking for a pledge that does not run out in 2017, you can pledge your gas tax and still use your 1 cent sales tax to pay the debt service. You can pledge your communication services tax and still use your 1 cent sales tax to make your debt service payment. So
A public services tax, the nickel taxes on gas that we aren't charging currently.
if you could impose a public service
And there are
tax.
other sales, isn't there a sales tax, like a half cent we can charge
There is a road sales tax that you could impose.
that without having to go to the referendum?
Now, you hear what you're saying to
I have to
yourself.
verify whether it has to go to referendum. I believe it does. But
If for some reason the penny tax was not but again, I'm not pushing anything. I'm making
there's
sure everyone's as
12
caught up with I
local
am.
option sales taxes that you
Okay.
can.
Okay, let's let Mr. Thurman get up here and tell us what he thinks. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. I know the answers to almost all the questions that have been discussed here, but I don't remember all the questions. Yes, there's two loans. One of them runs out November of 2013. One of them runs out November 1, 2017. The sales tax runs out December 31, 2017. Regarding that allocation, there's already 20% of that is part of what the courthouse funding is pledged towards. So you really can't even allocate that, even if there was a desire to reallocate the other portion and beef up to 60%, you couldn't really do that. So one of the reasons why and may not have followed up with Mr. Ralph back when he was coming and talking to us in May and June timeframe. But basically, one of the reasons why I'm not able to get too enthused about this is because if you don't want to go beyond the 2017 1 cent time frame, which I wouldn't recommend, and you don't want to pay off the debt that we're about to pay off in 2013, then your only real option is to refinance, is to take on more debt service, which I really don't recommend given the nature of our economic condition in the county and the economy as a whole, or refinance the second loan that runs out in 2017, of which probably 90% of that $181,000 early payment penalty is attributable to that. And on top of that, the rate that you're paying on that is really comparable to what you would get by refinancing. So really, I think there's a time and a place for a project just like this. I just don't feel comfortable that this is the time and the place to do it. You guys are going to make the decision on this, but this is kind of different from refinancing the house in that in the worst case scenario, if you had the refinance in the house and your contract job ran out and you didn't have another prospect, you can sell your house. But you really don't have that option here. So, the whole idea of the covenant to budget and appropriate is that you have committed contractually that you will do something to put in the budget. And so you really are under the gun. You're forced then to come up with something that you have to cut or some other fee that you have to raise in order to do that. I'll be honest, I think a very large part of my reservation has to do with, getting our county back in better financial shape and maybe to some idea getting a better idea about the economy in the state and the nation. In addition to those things, there's certainly some reason to believe that I think I heard earlier this week that the new governor is promising property tax relief. I suspect what that's going to mean is a little more pressure on the revenues that you guys are able to generate here locally. And that's just one more stress that makes me nervous about going into debt, especially longer than the 2017. I do want to just touch briefly on the early prepayment. We have we borrowed the money in 1998 to pave the first batch of roads. Mike was on the board and pretty instrumental back in that. And when we borrowed that, we got a pretty good interest rate, around 4.5%. We went to Bank of America once, I don't remember exactly when it was, but probably a couple of years later, and talked to them into dropping down the rate. Then we went back to them again in 2002 and started talking to them again about borrowing a little bit more money and dropping down the rate. And so finally they said, okay, if you'll we'll drop the rate down from 4.4 or something like that down to 3.8, I believe, 3.82 or something like that. We'll drop that far, but don't keep coming back and don't try to go out and refinance again. We're going to do this for you and we'll save this much money. I don't remember how much the savings was, but that's the history behind that. We would not normally take out even a fixed rate and sign off automatically to say that we could live with a prepayment penalty, but that's kind of a little bit of the history of how we arrived at that point. At the time, I think, I remember talking to Commissioner Stewart and one of the nice things about this is interest rates can't go much lower. Well, but lo and behold, here as of late, we've proven they can go a little bit lower, but they still can't go much lower. There are other options that I think we probably could explore. One of them would be to go back to Bank of America and say, I know there's a prepayment penalty, but what's the worst thing they could do? Say no. So that's an option. There's an option of waiting until the debt is retired in 2013, at which time we will have nearly half of the $750,000 freed up. Doesn't help you pave any roads right now, but that's got much more appeal to me.
Brett, how much of the revenue from the 1 cent sales tax, how much do we get, and how much more than $750,000 do we get from the 1 cent sales tax?
We get about $1.1 million in the 60%.
And 750 of that goes to payment.
Yes, and
So that leaves
that's about 350,000, I guess. That is where you're using some of that money to pay. What are the old shell points?
So we're paying as we go, basically.
Right. So right now we're kind of working on a pay-as-you-go basis, which has some advantages to it. I mean, some of the more economical road paving we got done was back when you guys were working on this, a few years ago. We were paying as you go, but we were paving roads for $90,000 a mile. As far as just the actual materials, and that wasn't really including the labor for public works. But then again, we weren't paying any more above our contractual road labor anyway. Let me see if there's anything else I want to mention here. One of the other hesitations that I had about this and about the 30-year thing is I don't know much about road paving. Well, it was originally 30 back when we were talking back in May. I don't know much about road paving, but I just know that for some reason, maybe it's the sandy soil here, I don't know. I don't think we have too many roads that last 30 years before we have to resurface them. We're going to have to come up with money to start resurfacing the ones that we paved in 1999 and back when we borrowed the first $4 million. Lo and behold, it's kind of like a car. About the time we get the car paid off in 2013, we're going to have to start coming up with some extra money to start. Maybe, I don't know how long it'll be. That's something we might want to workshop somewhere down the road, is really strategically what is our repaving demands likely to be on the batch of roads that we did with the 1998 borrowing and the 2003 borrowing. I don't know the answer to that.
Personally, I wouldn't favor borrowing any more money. I mean, if we got a road we want to pave, let's save the money up and pave it. I don't feel comfortable extending beyond 2017.
I basically, do you have any problem with us with the $750,000 a year to 2017? Is there any? We have this. We'll be making the 750. If he can restructure some money for us that keeps us at 750,000 to 217, then I can sort of live with that. In other words, we stay with the same payment, we have the same maturity date, and maybe, I'm sure he can restructure something. You can work magic with your numbers and give us...
Creative finance.
I did that a lot. That's...
What I need you to do is drive me home and we'll talk about it.
I'll do it.
Well, I think I covered most of the things that I wanted to cover. I guess from my point of view, there's just so many unknowns and uncertainties out there, and I really want us to shore up our overall financial position before we spend too much money, current resources or borrowed resources, because in the end it's all going to come out of current resources, and that's kind of my 2 cents worth, so to speak.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Next up, Alan Wines from Pebble Ridge. Just talking about the document you gave us.
I didn't want anyone to get too wrapped up about, I guess, the roads that were selected. I used the paving matrix that was provided by Public Works, looked at if we had the right-of-way, and then the ones that ranked the highest. Spoke with Brenton Cleve a little bit today, and he said that I may have unclicked the box that was supposed to be clicked, and that was whether or not it connected to paved roads. This is just an example of what you might be able to do with some sum of money.
So you didn't pick your roads out? All right. Never mind that.
This is the matrix.
I thought this was Alan's
No, I would have picked a
wish list.
No.
I do want to say that this was, these aren't detailed. I didn't ride every single one of these roads and look at the cross drains and the side drains and any potential drainage issues, but I did try to give a good attempt at an estimate of what you could do.
Is this with a contractor doing all the work?
These prices are with a survey, a engineered design, bid it out publicly, a contractor who would have bonds and insurance.
I know at the time, back in the day, we paid, I don't know how many, it probably got into the hundreds of miles of roads in-house, and you said earlier we couldn't do that anymore. Is that?
Well, I didn't say you couldn't do that because you're currently doing it. I don't advise it. There are two levels of liability that I think are being assumed at that point. One is during construction with the contractor. If you don't have a good relationship with your contractor, if an issue comes up, he could change order you to death.
Cleve? Is that who you're talking about?
No,
I mean, we pave Lower Bridge, major roads in-house for less than half of what a contractor. We did it both ways. We bid some roads out and had the contractor do turnkey job, and then we did a lot of them in-house with Aubrey spread. You know the deal.
What Alan's talking about, if we put $6 million worth of work on the street right now, we're opening bids tomorrow for a sewer line project. We have 18 bidders signed up in pre-construction. Odds are, if we put $6 million out, we're going to have somebody from Georgia, Alabama, South Florida, come in here with a crew and go to work. Right now, we can stop our contractor. We got a road prep guy and the paving guy. We stop them. We've made changes to Old Bethel this week, but they only work or pay for what they do. They go home, they don't charge us anything. What Alan's kind of getting at, if we put this amount of money on the street to do this volume of road, when those guys hit the ground running, we better have our ducks in a row, or else we're going to get change order to death.
Well, I think the worst thing we could do is borrow $6 million and spend it like a drunken sailor on paving every road we want to. The way we used to do it was slow and methodical. We'd do this road. It may take a long time. It takes longer. You can either do it fast and expensive, or you can do it slow and do it a lot cheaper. And that's how 90% of the roads got paved out here, the major ones. And there are a lot of. I'd like to see.
It's like just a personal family. There's a new car out there at $40,000. Only they can buy it at $16,000. But if they don't have the money for it, they don't need to buy it. And we don't have any money. Regardless of what a good deal it is, it doesn't matter if this guy was whatever. Regardless of the good deal that we have, we don't have any money. And borrowing money is not good money. It's a payment you got.
If I could just add a couple things. I'm Cliff Nauer. I'm Vice President of Preble Rish, and I'm extremely familiar with Wakulla County. Done a lot of work here.
I went to college with Cliff.
For you guys. I did the 3-laning on Crawfordville Highway for you guys, and I lived here myself for a number of years. So one of the things that I'm in business to do is to pave roads and to build roads and to pave safe roads as cheap and economically as you can possibly build them. And I do it in a number of counties. And one of the issues that comes up all the time is, how do we get economy of scale? Well, one of the ways that you get economy of scale is by doing what Cleve and the Public Works Department has done, which is put out a continuing services contract for paving, a continuing services contract for road-based preparation, and then a continuing services contract for providing lime rock on these jobs. You guys have benefited from that, no doubt. What's changed since you guys started doing that is the amount of work that other contractors are doing. For instance, the 18 people he's talking about that signed up at his pre-bid, we're paving roads right now for 60 and 70% of the cost that we paved them for 3 years ago. Asphalt's not gone down. Asphalt cost is still very high, but the earthwork, the grading, the lime rock, the culverts, the preparation, all those things, and clearing are significantly cheaper right now than they were 3 years ago. And so we're bidding out projects all over the place that are coming in significantly below budget. One of the things that allows you to capitalize on the current economic condition is to have a set of plans that shows how much earthwork is there to do on the job. In other words, when you have somebody bidding on the project against other contractors, you want to be able to show them how many cubic yards of earthwork are on that job. What are the finished grades going to be on the road? What are we going to do about the drainage? And those types of things that allow, really, when you put a project out for bid, people to compare apples and apples. The continuing services contract that you guys have right now, I think you pay something like $68 a ton for asphalt. That's a ridiculously low price for asphalt. And I think when you renew that or whatever, I seriously doubt that you'll get the same price. But opening the door up to competitive bidding is paying big dividends in lots of counties through the Panhandle right now, above and beyond the normal continuing services contract like you've done. There's one other significant change that just occurred on November 1st of last year. There's something called Phase 2 of the ERP, which is the Environmental Resource Permitting Program for DEP. All the roads that you guys have been paving, you've been paving under the Dusty Roads exemption from DEP. The DEP didn't require you to get a stormwater permit because you were able to demonstrate that that road was county maintained prior to January of 2001. Well, last year, they changed that. The Dusty Roads exemption still exists, but you no longer can just go start paving roads. You now have to submit a set of plans to the DEP with a permit application for them to review it to confirm that it meets the guidelines of the Phase 2 ERP requirements. Then they issue you a permit. So I know that in the past you guys may not have done that. November 1st changed that. You're now actually required to have a survey and a design and a set of plans that get submitted to DEP for them to review and approve before you start paving. Your only other option is to submit for and get a general permit for every road that you're going to pave. The list of stuff that Alan put together right there, I apologize that it didn't take into account the right-of-way situation. I am extremely familiar with Randy's matrix. In fact, I have stolen Randy's matrix and used it in about 3 or 4 other counties with major modifications to address different issues that they're concerned with. And it's a fantastic way to do it. It takes the politics out of road paving, which is unbelievable. So Randy's matrix is a great way to do it, and I apologize that our list there doesn't take that into account, but what we tried to do is give you guys kind of a general range of costs if you bid it out to a contractor. And just like Cleve said, you're looking at anywhere from $200,000 a mile to $350,000 a mile, depending on the density of the residences and the amount of stormwater that you have to convey across the roadway. So it can be $200,000 a mile, it can be $400,000 a mile, depending on what road it is and the density of the population on that road. So I just encourage you guys to think about either putting together plan sets and putting them out for bid, or making sure that when you guys go back out for bid with these guys that you have continuing services contracts with now, that you put some sort of mechanism in place to make sure that you don't get yourself in a bind with the DEP folks that have just changed the rules.
Well, I would suppose then that Cleve would advise us on that.
Yes, sir. I would imagine so. The list of stuff that Alan put together right there basically shows the survey, the design, the construction inspection, and the contract administration for those projects at a total of about 12%. So we use local surveyors over here. So the survey, design, construction plans, contract administration, and inspection all came to 12% on that, which is extremely, extremely low for new road construction. Normally, resurfacing projects would demand 10%. So what we put together right there for you guys is 12% for new road construction to get you in compliance with all the DEP requirements, and also to address safety issues like stopping sight distance, the drainage, whatever drainage issues needed to be addressed, the signage, the striping, the whole 9 yards. So that's what Alan provided in that. I apologize, the list doesn't match based on right-of-way, but we're here to support you guys any way that we can, and if you guys come up with 5 roads or 50 roads or 0 roads, we're on the team.
Thanks. Thank you. Cleve, do you have anything you want to add before?
Mr. Chairman, could I make one other comment? I want to make you all absolutely aware of the fact that I respect the clerk as the chief financial officer of the county. I support that all over, everywhere. Some places that gets lost in the shuffle. You ought to listen to what he says. But he is not an engineer. He don't know whether the road will last for 20 years or 30 years. These people do. The other part of this is, and it sounds good, Commissioner, as you pay as you go and whatever, and your granddaddy did that and so forth. But right now the times are different. And you need to give consideration to have the people who are going to use this road for 20 years or for 30 years to pay for it. And you do that by borrowing the money to do that. Now, I will do, as Pebble Rich has said, I will do whatever you all want to do. I'd like to help you if I can, and if you'll just let me know what that is, I'll be over there in the tall bushes till you get ready to tell me what that is.
Thank you, Mr. Seelan. So, moving forward with the conversation, as we're coming to the end of my workshop, I appreciate y'all's patience tonight. Couple of closing statements. The main reason I wanted to have the second workshop was to get everybody on the same page so that everybody knew this conversation was going on. Personally, if there's a way that we could facilitate doing something, with this, I would like to see us move forward with something, some sort of refinancing. If there's a way to do it where we can work with the assumption that we're going to get our penny sales tax renewed and that we feel comfortable with it, I'm willing to explore it. But if not, I understand. I do think there are a lot of roads that I don't anticipate getting paved. And if we don't do it this year, maybe next year when we feel more comfortable and the world looks, I don't know. But I know right now costs are as low as they're going to be. Materials are as low as they're going to be. And people, that was the question I had. I don't know who can answer it. I'd like to make sure whatever we do, if we do move forward, I'd like to see us get people in Wakulla working on these projects, because every day people are calling all of us, begging us for work. Or can you put in a good word somewhere? Is there someone you know? Is the county hiring anywhere? I'm like, no. If there's things we can do to help make that happen, I'd like to see it happen. And some of these roads, a few of them are in the gardens. I don't anticipate the gardens, again, having any real improvements without doing something like this, without having putting a burden on them. So that's just something to think about, and I wanted to give you all that much. And
I would just say, if you can keep our payments at $750,000 to the year 2017, and tell us how much money you can give us. That gets us money. It doesn't extend our debt. It doesn't extend our payments. We stay where we are.
Probably not much, if I had to guess.
Well, we'll look at what this is a creative man. He's got 92 years of being creative.
Brent, let me ask somebody this: if we have a surplus of $500-something thousand a year, this is just an option now, could we bond that? Basically pledge all the revenues? Is that possible? I'm just trying to think here.
I mean, I don't think banks.
could you talk into the mic? I apologize.
No.
We need to get them. Where's them wireless?
We got rid of them because they didn't work.
I don't think that banks probably are quite comfortable with that. I don't know what the banks would do.
Kind of like a loan to value, I guess they only do 80% or...
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's changed in the last couple of years. When the Right Reverend here spoke of the seats and Haiti's and stuff there, I think several things have changed in the banking world in the last few years.
You know, I'm all on board about doing it now while everything's cheap, but I'm not on board about pledging revenues past 2017 and putting this on the next crew or next 2 crews down the line. All of a sudden, we don't have $750,000 a year to pay for it.
Putting a problem on people 8 years from now, I understand.
I agree, and I want to thank, let's bring this to a close. I want to thank Alan for all the work he's done here. This is tremendous, and I think after listening to all of it and listening to the wise counsel of our good clerk, I agree that we, you know, with times like they are, I think we need to try to improve our status financially. And I mean, I love this idea. You know how much I love to pave roads.
Pave some roads.
I'd love to borrow $10 million tomorrow and start paving, but we can't. We don't have the wherewithal to do it. And I agree, we can't go past 2017. That's just too many unknowns about what the public will do in 2017. I hope they'll vote for the 1 cent again, and we'll be able to do more. But in 2013, we're going to get rid of one of these loans, and we'll have half of that $750,000 to spend on road paving, and I think we can really go to work again. And we have money now, and we're working. I mean, we're steadily paving roads.
Especially if we do some of the work in-house.
We've done more road paving in the last 2 years than we did in the last 6 years, or the previous 4 years. So I can tell you we're back on the way of paving roads. So let's just keep working it like we're working it, Alan. I think.
Yeah.
But I appreciate this. This is good, and I know.
Well, now you all have the same context that I know
your
about.
intent was not that these roads would be it. You were just trying to give us a sample,
Idea.
and we understand that. So, with that said, any citizens, Mr. Kester?
At least we know now what the deal is, so somebody asked.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I agree with, I think, what is turning out to be the majority on the board of the view that Commissioner Merritt put forward of not taking any more debt on at this point in time, no matter how good the project might be when we're looking at tough times ahead. We have that issue that the clerk brought up with the repaving of roads that was before the board before. That's a huge issue. And it's another whole pot that's going to have to be created to take care of that. Also, the facilities management with the proactive, preventive maintenance that has to take place, and an accounting of all of those facilities, and other things as well. But I'm glad Commissioner Chairman Stewart acknowledged the road paving over the last 2 years. I think we all want to see as many roads paved as possible for the community, but we also have to be fiscally conservative, and I thank you for that.
One last thing before we close, and I mean this good-heartedly. I'd really want us to work on this and get this thing updated.
Got it on my
road
computer
paving matrix.
in the office.
Because people ask me every day, where am I on the road paving matrix?
Now, how do you want to go back to the post office and the sheriff's department and the school and get them to reevaluate the roads, or?
I think you should. If we're going to use that same sort of criteria, if we're not going to take into them account, let's take them out and just use these other factors, which is just simply the main ones right away, and deeded right away. I mean, those are the biggest factors. That if we have right away, but we need to know if it's important to be paved. Is it a collector road? Well, all that.
What I did was I took their score and I weighted it by a factor of 1, 2, or 3, depending on how important the road it is. But anyway, yeah, I'll look.
I mean, this is important, and you and I agree when we did this thing that this took the politics out of it, and it does take the politics out of it. And it's nice when we can say to a citizen, like when they call me, I look and say, all right, Rebel Road, let's say for instance, and I look down and say, you don't have any right of way. We need to get you need to get out and help get the citizens get that, and they understand that then. And but when we just arbitrarily pave a road and it's not in line with this paving matrix, they get upset.
Yes.
And some of this needs to be redone. Some of these aren't right anymore. I mean, it's because they're not the most important roads for whatever reason.
I just asked Mr. Cleve. I sent him a very direct and pointed message the other day about how political are roads. So I'm glad to hear you say that. We need to take the politics out. We need to make sure this matrix agrees with us, and then we need to hang tight on the way this matrix provides.
There are roads that the board voted in the past to pave from the 96, whatever, that are still out there as being waited to be paved because the board voted to pave them, and I got a list of all those. I'd be happy to send it to you.
Well, we ought to press them to the front of this.
Well, I compiled a list, because you remember, you guys, the matrix is not supposed to be, this is the list. It's supposed to be a tool to look at, and the board makes the list.
Exactly.
It's just a,
you don't necessarily
tool.
pave off of this. You can look down this and say, all right, we need to go to number 5 because it has all the right of way and it.
Well, that's correct.
Most used, and it
If
collects more people.
Yes.
Because
Well, then that one should be at the top of the matrix, if it has everything we need, and it's a,
And it's the most
Well, it
important
might-
road, yes.
Or it could be that the road number 5 is 3/10 of a mile long, and the 4 before it are much longer, we don't have the money. There's a lot of things.
it all comes before us
Road
anyway.
is the top
Yeah.
one on this
Right.
whole deal.
Which is getting paved
yeah, soon.
the next month. Yeah.
Come on back.
Well, as you come out, I want to thank everybody who came into town, Mr. Sealand, Cliff, Alan, from out of town to help with this late night workshop. I hope your drives are safe in the dark.
Real quick, Cliff.
I'm just going to add one last thing. One of the items that I've added since I stole Randy's matrix was the cost per mile for maintenance. If you can get the accounting for the cost per mile of maintenance on these roads and use that as an additional factor in that list, it makes a huge difference if you have a road that's way, way over on the other end of town that you're spending a tremendous amount of money to maintain.
Yeah.
And that it's worked real well trying to make the order of the list work right.
Good idea.
And we actually took that into account back when we were paving them hot and heavy.
Okay. All right, well,
Commissioners,
Yes,
just one, Jessica had to remind me because I didn't remember. You did actually approve a committee to redo the matrix last year, so.
We did.
And I don't know what the status is, but we'll find that out and.
Okay.
We'll
There's
bring that
supposed to
back.
be a committee that's,
Really?
yes,
I've got a committee for everything.
but we need to get you in charge of that committee and do it. I mean that because you're the best one to do it, so.
Like I said,
Okay,
it's
so
on
we'll,
my computer.
we'll halt that meeting and let's take like 2 minutes and we'll come back and restart.
Good to see you, boys.